Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this February installation of our school building committee. Meeting minutes from January 5th. Is there a motion on the floor to approve? Everybody should have them at their places.
I move to accept the January 5th, 2023 building committee meeting minutes.
Second. Is there any discussion?
Is there anybody online? No?
Not at the moment.
So if no one's on, but
Yeah, I think Mary's on.
okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. Okay. All right, Mr. Crucial.
Yes.
All right, I'm a yes. Ms. Blair,
Yes.
your page is en route. Ms. Brown.
We're looking for you on the screen. I'm
Hey, right. Ms. Hill.
Yes.
Flanagan.
Pass those.
Frank. Ms. McNally is just arriving. Are you able to vote on the minutes? Or you want to abstain?
I'm happy to vote on the minutes.
Okay. Would you like to approve them?
Affirmative, yes.
Okay. Mrs. Margin Boucher.
Yes.
Mr. Penny.
Yes.
Ms. LeVar.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Quimby.
Yes.
Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
Those minutes
Are approved. Fantastic. Moving right along.
you have the test if you want
I'm gonna, let's just start there.
to. Okay, sorry.
Ms. McNally.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to introduce Kim Collins, who's with me here. She's the town's new Director of Municipal Finance.
Yay.
Hi, Kim.
She's a very
Bye. Fun time.
I'll find her quite compatible to work with. She's experienced with some bonding issues. She's been the town accountant in Ludlow for 6.5 years. So we're very pleased here to have her on our staff. And I think she's very well equipped to manage the financial issues once the vote for the new school is passed. So we're not going to stay at the meeting because this is only her second day.
Wants to get out alive.
Scheduling of it. And I really didn't want to subject her to any questions.
Can I ask one question about joining this committee, if she's willing to do that? As a school committee, I'm the school committee chair. We'd like to approve you as a member of this committee if you're willing to do that.
Yes, I was I was told about that, so that was the
Sorry to jump into
Oh,
it.
please.
And so that'll be on our next agenda. And then next meeting, maybe you'll join us or one of the
That's the
meetings. Awesome. Thank you so much.
and I don't know if it's appropriate, but I was going to send a proxy on the vote to Mr. Christensen to vote on my selection for the options when you get to that point of your agenda.
Okay, is that?
I'm sorry, I thought you had given both of us your proxy.
My proxy, sure.
Well, put in two then.
Is that okay? I mean, I just want you to,
I don't know. In an
I'll
open,
zoom in
is
on.
that all right in the open meeting law?
Well,
Do that?
so Tom has a vote.
Yeah, see.
You want him to vote for you as
My
well?
vote would be,
I think that's okay.
Okay, we can put it in the minutes that way.
okay. So thanks for letting us come and go. We'll be
Nice to
here
meet
Nice meeting you. Welcome.
at future meetings.
Thank you.
Excited to work.
Bye, Kim.
Take care.
What she got herself into?
Note it into the minutes.
Pulling up a resume right now. Do we have anybody online?
Yeah, we could all just do that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Just only one
Keith. Yeah, Benjamin.
All right. Thank you, Steve. All right. So just a couple quick schedule highlights before we get into the meat of the presentation. So when we last met with you folks, we had just provided documents to estimators for the PSR options. Since gone through the cost estimate reconciliation process. So we met with the two estimators several weeks back and compared numbers, went through that. And at the end of that, derived two reconciled estimates from the estimators, which you'll be seeing in the presentation later. And so we are here today to hopefully get approval on the preferred solution, the option 3C new construction, to move forward into the schematic design phase. Also to approve the project team, Skanska and the KWAS MMA to submit the PSR on behalf of the district. So those two votes will be coming up later.
But we're not trying to get approval for a project budget at this point.
That is correct.
Sure.
That is correct. And
That
so,
comes at the end of schematics.
yes. And so after this meeting, you'll see we have finalized the PSR. We will wrap up our deliverables and we submit to the state on February 14th. And once again, this is an information that you haven't seen already, but then that queues up their review period, which they have 21 days to review our submission and then provide comments to our project team. Then we have 2 weeks to respond back to those. This is all aimed at a MSBA board meeting on April 26th for PSR approval. So assuming all goes well at that meeting, will be approved and then we'll enter into the schematic design phase and start the submittal development for that, which will probably take until I think we have early August here. And then kind of a same process that we did for feasibility study. We'll get to estimates. So we'll have another estimate reconciliation process at that point before we do submit the state on August 31st. And skip to the next one, Gordon. And so that date that John talked about, when we will be actually firming up and approving the budget with MSBA is on October 25th. So that's the project scope and budget agreement. So that's when you finalize, everything gets set in stone, your schedule, your budget, and the scope of the project. And so we do have after that, we're showing in November for the funding of the project. We're trying to work with the local reps to just get a schedule. We understand, Gordon, I think Mary actually provided an email saying that we do need a town council vote prior to the ballot vote. So we'll work that into the schedule, work backwards from your guys' regular meeting. Yeah, back to it.
Yeah.
So we will build that out a little bit and add a couple activities in the schedule once we do firm that up. And then assuming an approved vote, we then go into detailed design, start to wrap up work towards the actual project here.
Are we able to move it to election day in November?
We are. So this date, originally, I think it was when we met with you, Kathy, and you just, I don't know.
I checked with the clerk
at that time, but
you can consider that firm.
We do.
Jeannie's aware of it. Yeah.
So we could, okay, because it's.
So is that date up there? Because I just pulled
Thursday.
Before then, it's.
I just figure if you do it election day, we're usually off on a professional development day. That's a good day to get the town out voting. It's a day that they mobilize.
And Jeannie told me there are no elections, state or local, coming up on the ballot. So it would be a singleton,
It would just be us.
right? There won't be any other distractions.
I like that. Put it on election day.
And that day is known. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Tuesday, the 7th.
I think it's the 7th.
It's the 7th. Okay.
Yeah, Tuesday. Yep.
So we'll have to work from there because essentially you'll need, I would assume, although you can, town council could probably vote to approve it without the project scope and budget being finalized at MSBA's level or no? Because that's on October 25th. That's when everything gets formalized, approved. So we need to wait until then and to have that be a town council meeting.
So.
Yeah.
Jeannie would need the specific wording
For
the ballot.
So you'll need
5 weeks in advance for the printer.
5 weeks in advance. So we better check with MSBA.
Yeah.
We must be able to do that. Is how would they set up their votes?
That's almost right. Typically, I would
We've
do
done
it.
that before in Arlington. We had the vote language to get approved by the MSBA before the project scope and budget meeting.
Okay, even if the council for that town or city had not voted yet?
I would have to go back and check that. I'm just thinking the language of the vote.
Right.
That was approved, but I'll have to go back. I can follow up on that.
Yeah, I think they can approve the language without necessarily having the council approval.
Got it.
One thing we've run into, and another community is that there's a set amount of days between a town council approval and a ballot vote. So again, we just want to make sure that East Long Meadow didn't have any such.
I don't believe,
Provision.
I'm looking at Ralph with our council president. I don't think there's that
Okay.
restriction.
So you have some freedom. Okay.
Okay, and so we could go through the rest of the schedule here. This is actually, what you're seeing here is actually, if you recall, we have two different schedules kind of because we have the committee has not selected yet a delivery method for the project. So we do have two schedules kind of right now just to show the differences between those. But once we do know what we're going with, obviously we will just roll with the one schedule. But this will, if you go to the next page, Gordon. So under this design bid build methodology, we do need to wait a little bit longer for the full design to be completed before we do bid out the project. So the date you're seeing up here down in the yellow, the occupancy move-in date of April of 2027 is only true if we were to go forward with the design bid build delivery method.
Ben, for our purposes in these kinds of discussions, does it make sense to just settle on one for now, recognizing that we haven't finalized it, but just so that we're not always going back and forth and explaining and re-explaining and leaving somebody to possibly get confused?
I think it would help on the confusion, especially because we do have, as of right now, the PSR, we do have both included, but there might be some confusion on the state level if we do.
I mean, my suggestion would be use the one that's more aggressive. You can always push it back. But if we use the one that's more extended and then we decide we're going to do something different, you know, there could be impacts there. Anybody have any thoughts? Thomas?
I agree. If we're gonna pick one, it should be the more aggressive.
And again, we're not finaling anything. This is just for purposes of our discussions. What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, when are we going to pick for sure?
I would think in the next 30 days.
Would love for it to be in early March. That would really help with the whole processing of it.
So what more information do we need to decide that other than what we have already?
Well, I think given the discussion when we last presented two options, I think we tabled it at the time just to get through this PSR submission. We did want to, because there was a lot of questions and everything, which we've gone back and done some homework on. So I think we'd like another opportunity to just come in and hash out anything, answer any questions that you folks might have in a follow-up SBC meeting. But I think that could probably take place next month, I would say, or maybe
It could be a meeting after this, right? I mean, once we get the PSR out, get some breathing room.
Yeah.
I would dedicate a whole meeting to it, I think.
Would or would not?
Would it?
I agree.
It's gonna take at least an hour and a half to get.
And you guys will give us a little more detailed information
Yes.
about the process, and because I, don't want, which way I'm swinging, but I also don't want. There's a comfort level, and if you guys are more comfortable working one way than the other, that's also to our advantage in a lot of ways, depending on the cost differential there. So I would like to hear what you guys got to say.
Would you want to go the next meeting following this, or should we push it out too so that you got a little bit more time to do whatever it is you guys are doing from a research standpoint?
just because I think when we talked about the meeting for next week, we talked about that being virtual and everything.
Yeah, not next week.
For you guys. Yeah. Oh, you get folks will be in here, of course. But I think it would be a better platform if we could just be in here with you guys, follow-up meeting. So
Next meeting, we were thinking approve the minutes, which MSBA needs for the submission, and also look at what's our next public presentation. Yeah. After, we digest all the information today, what's the next public presentation? Where should that be? What should that look like?
Okay, so maybe the meeting after that.
Mhm.
Figure out what that looks like. And
That makes sense.
February.
anything else on
No, unless there's any questions,
this side?
get into the fun stuff.
I think that's all yours.
Whole another slide there. Did I have the
So Ben and I are gonna kind of go back and forth here, but
I see that.
right. So yeah, we're gonna walk through each of the options in terms of the numbers that came in from our two estimators. and then follow this with a little bit of information just to remind everyone about what was included in each of those options. So you all got access to the package of information. Our focus was really on being sure that we were providing reconciled information. So you can see that package we provided to you gave you access to all the background documents, the head plan, the plans.
Oh, you got it.
So to dig in, you have to go through all of that to understand it. So this is kind of a quick summary, but in the process, our bidders, and they're going to read some information differently based on their history of projects that they're looking at for different material costs. So there's always this process of two slightly different numbers or along the way, different numbers along the way, and then kind of trying to reconcile those to an average. So that average reflects differences of views and experience. So in option number 1, which is the code upgrade, and that wasn't something we did more work on after that initial round, but we're carrying it forward so that the whole community can see what basically doing nothing to the building ultimately costs in the long run. That's kind of partly how a lot of communities think about it. So you see PCM's numbers, PM&C's numbers, the difference between them. And then in the last column, the average of the two. And at the very bottom, the grand total average at $94.9 million for the cost for the code upgrade. So it's easy to compare for us mentally to PM&C because they gave us the numbers last time. It went up. Based primarily both this and the ad reno, all of them in a sense kind of went up slightly because of the code change that's occurring in energy and anything that might have some consequence from that. But also we're still in a period where material inflation has exceeded expectations a little bit. It seems to be cooling off. So they're always planning some escalation. If it exceeded it by a little bit, then we saw a little bit of a jump. So that's why that number went up from where we were in the last round. Again, just a reminder here, next slide, is that really this assumes that the district could conceivably do all of that work in one fell swoop, but more often than not, it's actually reflective of projects that you might do over time. So it's really an information point for the community more than anything. And as a result, the MSBA's participation in that is significantly more close to negligible than the other projects, because it doesn't reflect your educational plan, doesn't meet space guidelines, and often it actually unfolds as a series of projects over time. So those projects may be eligible, but for the purposes of being conservative here, we're not showing a reimbursement percentage on those. The next, it shows you the reconciled numbers for the ad reno. So PCM had 134.5 million, 149.4 million, a difference between them. And then that final number, so roughly around 142 million, and that's in construction costs. Going to the next slide. So we did squeeze this down. It is smaller than we had it at the last round. So you would have thought that would show a really big improvement in cost. But again, the energy code concerns kind of came in that we had to actually explore insulating outward rather than inward, because we couldn't actually achieve the insulation levels we needed moving inward. So that was kind of a really big cost impact on the project, as well as just generally trying to meet code. And again, this plan represents a compromise in the ed plan goals and the recreational goals. We don't have as much latitude to shift the fields and organize the field, and we don't have quite as much into it, but it does meet generally the goals that we spoke about. We added to this the $3 million for the modulars, because this would require students be moved into modulars for construction, which we know was a really big concern. The next one is 3C, the new construction option. The numbers are closer together, and partly because we spent more time actually negotiating with them and talking and asking them to explore why their numbers differed. So as a whole, that's helpful, because this is the number that we knew you're very concerned about. And you'll see that the final reconciled number here is 144.4 million. And on the next slide, just to talk a little bit about that, we did over time squeeze this down by 1,600 square feet. This is actually a little less than what we spoke about in the last meeting as well. Some of our adjustments really just had to do with some program discussions with Frank, things that we've talked about along the way. We've always been kind of on the margin on this one. We're working with a specific ed plan and trying to work within that. So small changes in it. This also includes at this point in the number you're looking at, district offices, LCAT and IT, as we discussed. None of those have been removed. We do have a diagram that shows what the difference is between the project with or without those. But for the purposes of this agreement, this PSR, we're carrying all these spaces in here. This also includes concessions, press box, basketball courts, tennis courts, updated rec fields, irrigation for the recreational fields, and the full site lighting. We placed lighting for the baseball field in the infrastructure. Remember at the community meeting, that was a request. So those are currently in there. This option assumes air source heat pump, which was your choice of the VRF system for the HVAC approach. And then we gathered to help you information on what the cost of PV would be for 37% of the roof area. And that percentage really is kind of somewhat code driven for solar ready roof. It's so that you could conceivably offset the electrical costs. In the next phase of design, we'll be doing full energy modeling. So we'll actually get a better sense of what the operational demand of the building will be. And that'll kind of help us get closer to that. We're not necessarily setting out to be a net zero school, but basically we know that HVAC selection we made is going to be high electrical demand. So, as we talked about at the last meeting, kind of pairing that. So partly we got that number so that you could actually, keep that in mind as a town, but also because it could be brought into the project now. We also got...
Is the 37% that you mentioned, is that the minimum threshold to be declared ready?
No, it's actually
Yeah,
50% of the usable roof area.
Right.
And because we don't have equipment sized yet, we used our best information and experience to come up with something that we think gets us a number. The problem is the two cost estimators have kind of different numbers, but we can get into a little bit of that detail later. So
it's a lot of PV. It's, what was that?
A big system.
Yeah, it's a very big system.
46.
Yeah. I mean, you can use PV to offset your plug loads or your plug loads plus your HVAC, sort of different scales. It helps along the way, but these are very energy intensive buildings. And I heard you talking on the way in. It was about, the national, how much of our grid is dirty versus clean. And essentially if you're all electric, but the grid is still burning coal, then how clean are you? So this really kind of helps you move towards actually getting rid of that carbon.
Well, and Dora, you mentioned that the new building will actually use more electricity than this existing building, which I found interesting. And, obviously we're getting rid of fossil fuels, so that's the difference.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about PV later. Is that okay?
I just wanted to also mention that we also got the numbers on geothermal, so you could see that. And those are not in the number. These are listed as additional alternate numbers, should they be of interest to the committee. And then also the cost for a natural gas fired HVAC system, so we could see the difference in cost. So that was a point where the two estimators looked at that very differently. And I think that probably has to do with sort of MSBA experience versus non-MSBA experience. So there's a little difference there. But the geothermal number, as we talked about, is quite a bit more. Let's see, what was that in the reconciled Christian? He's got that right.
range was
We had about 7.3 million on PM&C's number. And the payoff on that takes just longer than it does on solar to recoup as an investment. This also, just to note, as we've mentioned, and I'm saying some of this for the public record for folks who might be watching, that the option 3C does not require modulars. It's phased construction only in that we would be taking down two small parts of the building, the small gym and the weight room, in order to start construction. And the new building would not be placed on top of this building, only covering that small area. So that allows the students to stay in the building through construction and avoids the modular rentals. So then on this slide,
So are you saying that 2C would be more because we'd have to add on to the cost with mod?
actually not more, it's a tiny, tiny bit less. So the number that we gave you previously, which was a little bit more when we met, was PM&C's number. PCM's number was a little bit less than PM&C's on the ad reno. So when you reconcile, they're very, very close, but a little bit the other way, which kind of makes sense as well, really. I mean, but they're so close. So if you look at the final reconciled, go to there you go. The comparison there is the bottom line for the project costs. So the code upgrade being 114.8 million, the ad reno being 173.3 million, and then the new construction 174 million, and then the local share on those being 114.8, 116.9, 117.6. So they're very close, all of them, So that's the starting point of the information based on that all-in site information, and they're staying out of it.
So Dory, when we talk about new construction and we go to the public about what number one would be code upgrades, if we were to not get the vote on new construction, we don't necessarily need to spend 114 million or 95 million on this building. But what conceivably could we say to the taxpayer? If we don't get this vote to pass, it will cost us not 95 million, or would it?
That's basically, if you were to do it at one project, that's what you're looking at. And that's just to bring the building up to code. Yeah, that's the idea. Often communities have trouble committing to that right away, so they break it up over time. It just becomes sort of continual debate over deferred maintenance and how to break that up over time. You're going to do a roof now, you're going to deal with the windows, et cetera. So that number reflects that happening at once. But in reality, if you stretch it out, that number could potentially grow or frankly, sometimes not happen and you just aren't dealing with the problem, which is often the case as well.
So I have a question in terms of like going out to the community with it. So the 114, obviously is just a code upgrade. Does it do anything with the pool at all? No. Other than like maybe the systems for it to run, but nothing else.
It just, and there's numbers in there that fix,
and
assume a fixed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the 117, even though we know it won't be part of the project, is it part of the 117, the pool? Approximately, no, million. It's not. Okay, just a second.
Option 2. Oh, I see. Both 2C and 3C are without pool.
Or without the pool. Okay.
Are we talking about the pool today too?
In general terms.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure we did. Yeah. Thank you.
The point, good to mention that, yes, these are not. Of that. So just to be clear on that, and because the MSBA doesn't support the pool project, the pool is not shown here. The intent is for the pool to happen as a second project. And again, I'm saying this also for people who haven't been paying attention necessarily, that'll happen in parallel. So, John Switzer and Skanska will provide proposals for our services to carry that work in design through schematic design in parallel. And then that will get estimated as well. So that when you're about to go out to vote for this, you're also going out to vote for the bond for the pool project. So we'll have that updated at the end of schematic design. So next we just have
Excuse me 1 second, Dory.
Yep.
Somebody must have a question on that for like 20 minutes.
Now, I do understand. The only reason why I asked about the pool was because of the asterisk. I just wanted to make sure that we know that it's not included. You know, I wasn't sure if it wasn't. And so that was otherwise. How do we sell this? Like,
Well, so in,
no,
I'll
it's
just
like,
throw this out there because we talked a little bit about the pool and the locker rooms and wondering if we can include the locker rooms in the main project as we have. I know it's getting into the weeds, but instead of duplicating the locker rooms in the pool to cut cost of that project, I'm sure it would still need facilities, changing room or whatever. But in order for the population to use it during the day versus teams to use it after school or at night, if we could put the locker rooms in the main school project, so like we have the two on the top north corner, maybe we split those in 4 and put a hallway through the middle or something creative like that that attaches to the pool, save a square footage on the pool project, Beth, to your point, to get that cost as low as possible. So maybe instead of the 10.5, we can get something less, but still have all the facilities. And those locker rooms could be used for, you know, outside sports as well. Instead of the 2 locker rooms, maybe 4. Just a suggestion. I know that's later,
I
but
think that for the purposes of planning, we have to assume they're separate and whatever the pool needs for support, because we're going to have to permit both projects separately. So the plumbing, you know, plumbing inspector is not going to go, wait a minute, where's the locker room and the support space that's connected to the pool? So I think we should assume that they are distinct and separate projects, not only from a planning standpoint, but permitting and support standpoint.
Put us over the reimbursable square footage.
Few months, you decide that you want another 2,000 square foot investment in the school project. We could incorporate that. It would not be reimbursable, but we all know that. So to some degree, it's open to that debate. I would say that knowing the way the allowable square footage for locker rooms is calculated by the MSBA, not super generous.
we're going to pay for the locker room either way.
Well, right.
The big project is big, and the second project, secondary, if we can make the secondary project as small as possible, and we're going to connect anyway.
Right.
The locker rooms in the main project, but leave that building accessible by itself during the day so that, you know, seniors.
Right. I'm thinking more about the question about like, do you divide the locker rooms and how does that function? That's something that I think we should, if you're interested in that, we'd look at it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that becomes like an assessment of how that would function, whether it makes sense. And I say that having seen the way your current school operates with what feels very much like 4 locker rooms currently. I mean, that's what I'm saying. So if we were,
There's probably a handful of things like that. I mean, I think you're on the right track. We should at least study it.
Yeah.
And so we look at it that way. So I just think that
we need that second vote to pass too.
the only thing is I'm thinking, and I know we're like in the weeds now, but you started this. I'm thinking that with the pool project, we need to have some sort of facilities there that can get locked off from the rest of the school. So if we do have seniors using the pool during the day, they're not coming in. Otherwise, I understand.
No, it would totally be separate. And that's why I'm saying, you know, they can arrange it so that there's a door between the 2 locker rooms and the 2 or whatever it is. I don't know how you design it, but.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too far ahead, but that last slide that was in your email is
different,
basically the same, but different.
Right. That's what I was saying, that the differences. And so when the slide we sent out had everybody's numbers on 3C. On 2C, it was PM and C's numbers. So we didn't have it reconciled by.
You need acronyms that are further.
Yeah, right into that one.
I wanted to share some information. We were in a hurry there. So that's why you're looking at PM and C's numbers on 2C and on 1 in the one that you looked at previously. So now
the last
reconciled one.
The last slide in this, page 18 of 18 is essentially this chart with different numbers.
Summary table of cost per option.
Oh, at the
very end of.
So 3C should be the same because those were reconciled.
Yeah.
It's still 117.6 million.
Yeah.
Right?
Gold number.
But then 2C, the one that was sent out earlier, right, was 121 million. And that's because we just had the designer estimate, which was PM and C.
Okay.
And we did not yet have the OPM estimate, which.
Well, essentially our 3 options, approximate local share is basically a wash.
Pretty close. And so as Dora was saying, that was a difference between, so on 2C, that's a bigger difference between the construction cost and the project cost because of that $3 million for the modulars.
For the modular.
Right, but otherwise, we just kind of applied a percentage to each of them because we're at that very initial stage.
Since we're talking to the cost per square foot of this estimate, what's that number?
Which one?
What we're gonna do new, so 3C, we're heading in that direction. What's our estimated cost per square foot?
Estimate.
On the reconciled,
It's like 750.
758. And then, 711 on the 2C. Right, those are back on the slides for each of these.
Go back there.
Expensive.
There you go. So right down there at the bottom, far right corner, that little tiny number.
Yeah.
The reconciled cost.
Greg,
$800 square foot?
Well, really?
we haven't really made any attempt to value engineer things.
Yeah.
As Dory said before, we have all this field stuff in there, and right now we're just trying to get the PSR submitted to MSBA.
Yeah.
The next phase is where we can take that.
So you still have all.
Yeah.
Do it if you
Now
want.
we have a baseline.
Yeah.
That's all I'm looking for is the baseline. Yep.
The direct,
Let's make a motion, Greg.
right.
Scalpel, axe, chainsaw, whatever.
Yeah, and the direct cost per square foot on that one is 553. So that's
Okay.
helpful.
That's interesting too.
553 for the Reno.
That's for
No.
Pre-C. Okay. 558.
contingencies. Important, the educational space needs vision. So it's interesting to me to look at this, see that the ad reno is slightly larger, but it's not organized as efficiently as you would like. It's not organized around your current needs. So that's one of the reasons why top two categories, new construction, achieves more points. Recreational needs, we have a little bit more contiguous recreational field, the new construction option. The renovation gets you extra reimbursement from the MSBA typically, so that's why that gets a little bit more there. The modulars, I think we would actually have to change that one. So 2C will no, that's right, correct. This is always a double negative situation where the new construction gets points because it doesn't require any modulars. Parking needs are fairly similar between the two, but much more organized to your preference. And by pulling away from Maple Street, we get more of the ability to separate student and faculty parking in the new construction option. Because at this point, both the ad reno and new are incorporating and addressing the district office, IT, and LCAT. They're the same. They're pretty well organized now. And reducing queuing on Maple Street because the school's further in, that's going to help with circulation. Is there anything on this, any other criteria people feel strongly about that are, influencing their decision making or?
Dory, is that note correct?
Sorry? No, sorry. I thought that got changed. Sorry, the note is not correct.
What note?
At the bottom of.
Oh.
I didn't update that slide. Sorry. Yeah, the modulars and pool. I'll change that slide. I did correct it, but it didn't.
Yeah,
get into the PowerPoint.
on the.
I'll do it right now.
Can you do that?
Not on his.
Let's go to the next.
No, but are there any other criteria or any different rating? Because we'll include this in the submission to demonstrate to the MSBA, the process that the group went through.
What do you think, Kath?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the agenda at the draft vote language, so I apologize if Helen wouldn't mind repeating what you just said.
No, just, are these still the right criteria? Should they be weighted differently? Yeah, are we missing anything?
I looked at that a lot last night. I'm comfortable with it.
I mean, it seems pretty compelling.
Yeah.
Are they going to pay attention to this, or is it one more sheet in a
They will,
telephone book?
they want to know. how
Those to me would be the talking points that the public would have.
I guarantee we'll get pages of comments from them, most of which are pretty easy to respond to, but don't get shocked when you get a letter. And it's-
From the MSBA. not from the community.
yeah.
They're usually looking.
Frank and Ida Bond.
Yeah.
Frank. We already had our quota. Okay, they're back. We haven't met our quota. I know.
That's when the meeting took a turn.
All set.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so
Okay.
do we
Back
want
to
to?
the-
Thank you, Dory.
That's a lot of work. I appreciate it. I know I didn't do it.
So we want to talk through what's in the PSR, but before we do that, I think it's appropriate to go ahead and take a vote on the preferred.
Is there a motion on the floor to vote on an option to develop the schematic design?
There's motion language in the notes section. Should that be the option?
All right, you want me to do it? Under editor number 6, draft language? Oh, no.
Number 5.
Okay, number 5, I move to develop option 3C in the schematic design phase.
Second.
Any discussion? None.
Right. We're doing a roll call vote. Mr. Crucial.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Blair.
Yes.
Mr. Page. Yes. Yes. Brown.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, new. Ms. McNally, we're going proxy with Ms. McNally?
Yes.
Yes to proxy?
Yes, and yes.
Yes. Okay. Ms. Martin Boucher,
Yes.
Mr. Fanny. Yes. Labar,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Quimby,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
No proxy on that one.
Yes.
That passes.
So just in terms of making sure the MSBA is okay, if they're okay with the proxy vote, great. But if they're not, it's okay that we don't use it. Right? I just want that.
Yeah, we'll put it, we can put it in the minutes as a proxy vote. But we still have enough members here.
Yeah.
It's unanimous.
Well, should we ask council if it's even allowed? Mass General Law allows it.
Sure.
I just don't want to muddy the water unnecessarily.
Yep.
Because I'm thinking it's not allowed. That's all.
I don't know if you'd have to go to council, but
I just want someone to.
I would say open meeting law dictated.
So I mean, lawyers. I mean, lawyer.
Yeah, no, I know that. No, I know what you meant, SEL.
Yeah.
But I think there should be a piece in the open meeting law that talks about proxy votes, if I'm not mistaken.
If there's any question, should we just scratch Mary's vote? I mean, it's unanimous.
Not to be disrespectful to her, but I'm nervous with the MSBA and I don't think Mary would mind. I appreciate that her opinions, and I am a little nervous about that.
I would agree with you.
Pardon?
I would agree with you.
Would we ask Mr. Christensen if he's
He's looking right now.
okay?
Or, I mean, again, the vote doesn't matter. And just, I would, if you want to run through the vote again, like she's not here, and then she won't vote. But still, it'll be 14 to none to 1. Instead of.
That's why.
Yes, yeah, do it again.
So how about just don't acknowledge it?
Just move I move to exclude the town managers.
Wait, but now we have more motions in there
Oh,
unnecessarily. Mary's not here. Mary didn't vote. You're ineligible to vote for her.
okay,
Didn't happen.
right. That's cleaner.
Is absent.
I thought I said no. Did I not say no?
Yes. Thank you.
At one point you said no.
I heard no.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
And tell her it wasn't
She'll get it.
She,
it's about everything.
You heard my
And
anxiety.
Kathy, I didn't mean to jump on you. When you make the motion that it's in there, then
You're right.
it's more to explain.
It's cleaner this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Good discussion.
Is there moving right along, is there a motion on the floor to approve the preferred schematic report?
So you want to hear about it first?
We can,
Mary's gonna vote. You know what?
We can do it during discussion.
I'm sorry.
Yes, no, you're good.
Oh, well, what they just said, we can do the motion and get a second and then discussion. They'll talk.
Hold it though, but we talked about PV maybe as an option. Can we explore that before we go there? Because we might change potentially.
About lunch today. Oh, good point.
We had an employee appreciation lunch.
So, well, I'll go through this, Greg, and then let's go to that topic, okay? So, we emailed out the preferred schematic report, a draft of it. If anyone has any problems downloading that or accessing it, please let me know. Happy to try and walk through that, but this is the table of contents. It's a little bit overwhelming, and that's why we tried to break it down. So, Section 1 is the introduction. Section 2, evaluation of existing conditions. Section 3, final evaluation of alternatives. Section 4, preferred solution. Section 5, local action and approvals. And then Section 6 is the appendix. And so we broke it out that way on the digital draft so that you can just go to that individual PDF. Just to walk through them really quickly. The introduction might be the most interesting, 1A, and that's the part where we spend the most time actually kind of typing up a narrative, walking the MSBA through what's happened since they've seen the PDP submission, few specific dates they really want to see in that introduction, so we're sure to hit those. It talks about some of the overall project numbers. So again, that's kind of like the best overall view of what's changed since the PDP. The evaluation of existing conditions is basically, we spent a lot of time on that in the preliminary design program, that last submission. So this basically says existing conditions have not changed, but we have done additional reports since then. So since then, we have done a traffic study, done a geotechnical report, we've done a wetland survey, and we've done a site survey. So we're including all of those in this report. And if you have any interest in those specific items, certainly feel free to dive in. The final evaluation of alternatives, again, the narrative is a bit kind of the meat of that at the beginning. We developed most of these before we went out to the cost estimators for this PDP, for this PSR cost estimate. So, the outline of the site parameters, outline of the structural systems. So we didn't have a structural set of drawings to give the estimators at this point in time. So they went off of that narrative of what's the structural system going to look like? How does that compare to the other public projects I've seen lately, and get my pricing from there, right? So at the bottom of this section 3 is where we get all the estimates. So there is, a 80-page estimate from PM&C, and it is fortunate that their names are so close together. But PM&C, each, the designer brings a cost estimator on board, and the OPM brings a cost estimator on board. In reality, they're not really estimating from our interests. It's just two independent estimators, right? So the reconciliation was fantastic. I thought, it was nice to have both of their perspectives. Steve joined us, which was also great to get, that perspective in there as well. And then Skanska has done a great job of putting an estimate comparison together. So that's kind of the overarching view of it. A lot of the slides you saw tonight. For the preferred solution, then we get into the meat of this 3C that you all just voted on. So that's where we have the educational program, and they want to see that twice, once where they can see what's changed since the PDP, and then a clean version. We have the space summary, so the square footage of each room, and then some of the timelines and schedules towards the end. Local action and approval certification will happen to certify the minutes of this meeting, as well as we provide all the minutes from previous meetings. And again, Skanska's done a great job of getting that together for us, which is fantastic. And then for the appendix, that's where we just kind of put things that don't really go in with all of the other narratives, but we've got the architectural and site drawings in there. We'll probably, we have some student engagement takeaways and surveys. So just helpful information to share with the MSBA to kind of help them understand the process that we've been going through. Any questions? So it'll end up being a thick binder, and we'll get hard copies to the district and to the town, and then a digital copy as well. And all of that will be going out on February 14th.
In red.
Yeah. So to get to your question, Greg, the question you had to us was whether the PV should be just incorporated into the project and whether we could make that change, which we certainly could. So instead of it being an add-all, it's included. And also whether there might be some items from that list of all-inclusive site costs that we already feel, as a committee are really not high priority and therefore maybe should be removed. And, basically that would put us close to the same ballpark in numbers. Yeah, we do. And we're ready to kind of talk through some of those options to remove if you'd like. And if the committee is comfortable with that, then that could be another motion to make that swap and make that change that we make. So do you want to run through the different parts of that number?
Sure. So PCM did a great job of itemizing out some of these site amenities.
No.
We unfortunately don't have a slide to this, but they broke out irrigation to the infields. So that's baseball and softball. Irrigation to the outfields. Irrigation to the standalone fields, so the other playing fields. Lighting at baseball and softball. And lighting at basketball and tennis. And a lot of those were kind of community requests without maybe realizing the impacts to the project budget and taxes and all of that. So all of those itemized items come out to about $2 million, just over $2 million, $2,064,853. Right now, the PV cost is still in question. There's a pretty significant difference between the two estimates. If we take an average of the two, we're again right at about $2 million. So in some ways, it could be, depending on your priorities, we could kind of swap those without really changing any of the numbers that you've seen tonight. But it's just a discussion we wanted to have with the building committee.
Greg, what's your thought on PV?
The alternates. And we were just talking obviously together with these site amenities. And I don't know what the committee feels about, like you said, the irrigation. Is that something we could do down the road in order to save on the final cost? But I'm not really sure I'm opening it up to the committee because I know once this is done, we're probably not going to receive any more money. But we still need to be mindful of where we're going to be as far as the final budget is concerned.
How much
as well.
is the irrigation total on that, Christian?
Irrigation
They're already irrigated currently.
without lighting.
It's torn up. Yeah.
We come out to $667,000.
Just for the irrigation.
Correct.
Just for all fields?
Correct.
Isn't it more expensive? Isn't it less expensive to do it while you're doing site work than to do it after the fact?
Yes, mobilization costs. Yes, it is. We're just kind of,
And Christian, some of that 67 is eligible for reimbursement
Well,
to a degree.
so it's part of the site cost package, and our site cost package is above what the
They recommend.
rate is. So basically, anything that you cut out of site you're cutting out 100% of the district local share.
The way to separate out the lighting, say for the tennis courts, which currently have lighting, and the basketball courts, and then look at lighting on the practice fields and game fields that are outside of the stadium that don't have lighting.
Correct. So they separated out. So the request was really to have just lighting at the varsity baseball and the varsity softball field.
Okay.
And just those two comes out to $940,000.
And
Lighting at basketball and tennis comes in at 457.
I think you have to keep it.
How much?
457.
Yeah.
Made it very
So
clear at the community.
let's keep the tennis and the basketball. Let's not do the softball and the baseball and because they're not lit now. And I think the neighbors would not be, I'm just a suggestion.
Yeah.
And then put the PV in now because then it's in the project. Because as we said, this will be an energy consuming building and good for us for taking some initiative now. If we don't do it now, we won't do it. I know we won't because we don't do capital.
I'm just wondering why we're trying to tackle this problem.
I was going to say, let me offer one comment for the team. There will be lots of time to go through this thing with a comb and figure out, do we really need this? Do we really need this? You'll have much more accurate pricing once things are engineered and designed a little bit more. And I think I take your point on the.
If we just,
I'd love to put it in.
Just put it in now.
Sure, be done with it.
And we'll talk the other things later if that's what you want to do. I think the lighting is somewhat of an issue because to add that many lights around here, we're lighting this thing up. And so we need some discussion on that. But the PV for 2 million on a $175 million project, and we're going to be using more electricity solely. Let's add it in if we have to cut it later, but we could make that change, add it in. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
This is not getting us ready for it, but actual solar panels.
Yes.
Oh, that would save us a ton in a long.
No, I think it's getting.
No, it's
We're doing
A solar field. I mean,
a functioning system.
Yeah,
On the roof.
yes, beautiful.
very cool.
And that we can see on the approach.
No, we do not want to see that approach. We're not
Yes,
going
we
there
do.
right now. Not happening.
Give me
On it.
working on a couple, Beth. You just have to
On
look
it.
towards the
Hear you.
That's all. Yeah.
I think I was going to say, remember that this is not your budget number yet. And so it's a little bit of a false premise to say, trade this for this. Build
Fair. Yeah.
in what you want now. There's plenty of time, as Sean's saying, as we continue to develop a project to do this exercise again. Build the project you want now and that you want to sell.
So put the PV on now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it up.
I would like to see that on now, only because then if we do think about maybe, and we probably won't, the geothermal, that's one less thing we have to add on the back end, but that's nothing we want to add on this at this point.
That's another important factor is getting the public's comments, right? Because we want to continue these conversations. And so they understand the cost of all of these different components, so we can make the decision together, right?
940,000.
Yeah, that's
I know, that's crazy, isn't it?
Rounding errors.
And even that, you're right on. Gotta be directed.
You guys are clear with the request to add that back in?
I think we should get that as a motion to add the adult. To
Yeah.
I agree.
Because we'll have to
Yeah.
change the PSR report from
Yeah.
what you've seen so far. So I think that would be great.
Solely for the PV.
Yeah, just
Yes.
for the PV. The addition of.
But do we now want to pull that $1 million off for those lights now? Just
No.
make that number a little better? No, okay.
Do you remember how many people?
Sorry. I know, but I don't think we should do it because of the neighbors and the cost
I know, but it needs
and
to be
all those things.
discussed, though.
That's fair.
I think.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll have a better discussion.
Let in the public here.
All right.
Right?
Just trying to get that number
I
down.
know, I know.
Gives you the number in the project, you can go and say, this is our all-in number,
Right.
and then find out if people are, this is past our ability, what of these things can we sacrifice and you still have time?
And I think that's a question you could pose to at the next community forum. Like, if we had to cut something, if you were charged with cutting something, where would you go? Knowing that we have to play to all entities in this town and see what the temperature is then.
Cut out the academic spaces and just make it a field. So let's not ask that question.
One more Jim.
With all due respect, I get it.
If you would cut something that is not getting SBA grant funding.
Well,
Dory, you were saying you'd like to see a vote?
Yes, we'd like
Is there a motion on the floor to add the photovoltaic system back into the project budget.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
You probably want words, I think, for the motion though.
He gave them to me.
Okay, who's got them then?
Tori, did you get that?
Yeah, just motion to add photovoltaics to option 3C. Is that?
Right.
That works.
Okay. You're moving that? Okay, and Ryan, you second?
No.
Like the sun rises.
Power.
Discussion. No discussion.
We've had it.
Okay. All right, we'll take a roll call vote. Ms. Crucial. I'm a yes. Ms. Blair.
Yes.
Mr. Page.
Yes.
Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Right thing to do.
Ms. Hill.
Yes.
And Ms. McNally, no. Ms. Margin Boucher.
Yes.
Mr. Fenny.
Yes.
Ms. LeVar.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Quimby.
Yes,
Mr. Christensen.
yes.
Okay.
That's for me.
You guys have it.
That's right. I had mumbled. Noted, no proxy.
The invisible soldier.
To vote to approve the report already, right?
We didn't take it yet.
Not yet.
Wait.
Next. Next vote.
One more vote.
One more vote.
I'll wait for prompt. Get on. Sign types.
You're up.
For the PSR vote?
You're good.
Okay, good.
Somebody do it? Somebody else want it?
I'll do it.
About it.
Okay.
I move to approve the preferred schematic report, PSR, and authorize Skanska USA Building as owner project manager to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority on behalf of the district.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion?
So that will include photovoltaics in the
Well,
whole,
now.
just getting that in the minutes. Thank you.
Got it in the minute. Tori is on it.
We got in the report. Perfect. No discussion.
Or the middle of the discussion that just happened.
It's off the record.
For the minutes.
Take a roll call vote. Mr. Crucial. I'm a yes. Ms. Blair.
Yes.
Page.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Ms. Hill.
Yes.
Ally, no proxy. Ms. Margin Boucher.
Yes.
Mr. Fenny.
Yes.
Ms. LeVar.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Quimby.
Yes.
Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
Passes.
That's it, guys. Big one.
Big stuff.
That was the step.
Huge step.
Exciting.
We're all very quiet.
Fundamentally exhausted.
Yeah.
Quickly moves to new business.
Yeah. Is there any new business? No, nothing.
Another slide.
Nothing.
Are we gonna plan a outreach at some point? When is that?
That's the next slide right here.
Okay, good.
Look at this.
Question mark.
You want to speak to it? You want me to speak to it? or-
You can speak to it, yeah.
Okay, so. Well, it's February 7th, we have the school committee and town council annual budget meeting. On this slide, just noting that. Our next building committee meeting is next Thursday, February 9th, 4:00. And that would be to approve the minutes, which are going to be fabulous once they're. We'd also then discuss, I would think, when you see question marks, skip over February 14th. That's a pretty significant date, not only Valentine's Day, but a big.
Good joke on their part, Evan.
We want to determine whether we do that now or at a next meeting. When should our next public meeting be?
Early March?
There's a vacation in the middle of February.
Yeah.
That's
Wait till March.
March.
Well, if you have any events or anything that,
There, Ms. LeBar, you were talking about that's spring, right?
Which one?
The book fair at Mount Meadowbrook.
The book fair is in April, usually first week of April.
Okay, so maybe we do one, maybe we do another public forum here at the high school in early March and publicize it and invite people out. But then start to get out to these other events. The book fair at Meadowbrook attracts a lot of people.
Right. And each,
Even though we don't do a presentation, we might have flyers.
At the booth, yeah.
and each PTO has an end of the year kind of party, which is very well attended. So,
I like parties.
yeah.
I also wonder, I heard, I don't know 100% because I know Julia had mentioned it because she's working with the librarian at Birchland, that they're maybe thinking of doing like a townwide book fair. So that actually would be, I'll have her make sure she gives me info if that's going to happen. Because that would be a good thing, because that's a book sale for all ages, not just the little kids.
Right.
So I'll ask her about that.
Do we have to lock in that date today, or can we do it at the 9th meeting?
I think we can do it at the 9th meeting. We just wanted you thinking about it.
Okay. I can just tell you that there's already some scheduling conflicts early March. March 1 is 8th grade night, March 8th is spring sports night, and then March 10th and 11th, you have Spartanum that weekend. So I would try to avoid that week if we could avoid that.
Okay. Would you be able to bring next meeting a calendar?
I can do some homework between now and then just to verify some of these things. Yeah. Early March might be a little trouble.
So middle March? That's a former English teacher. I knew you were going to go there. Middle March. Oh, you didn't.
The yards. Middle March.
It's in March.
I was thinking St. Patrick's.
Beware of the Ides of March.
Can I ask what our relationship is with the St. Michael's Church as well? I'm just wondering because they have, on Thursdays, they have huge CCD events for like grade levels. So like, for example, 5th grade has like, I would say 75 kids in it. It would be a good idea maybe to do stuff like that. And they do it separately for every grade. So it's a different grade every Thursday night.
We could look at that.
It's nearly half our 5th grade population.
Yeah, it is a really large amount of kids.
The other thing is the basketball. How young do they start the rec basketball?
They actually have
Third grade.
Third grade?
Yep. They have a group called Bitty,
yeah.
Bitty Bitties.
Yeah.
If we can figure out the next public meeting date, it would be great to have a little flyer at Spartanum that seems to hand out to families so that they're aware of it. And
So if Frank is able to bring back all the March events that are happening at the high school for the 9th, and we can really get to a date and we can get that ready. Yeah.
Can I ask this? Did you say flyers at Spartanum?
Does that make sense?
Those are high schoolers and those families don't really, I don't know. Yeah. You know, I'm not sure if it's
not,
it would be public knowledge for them, but they're not going to benefit.
It's more the middle.
Well, they might, well, yeah,
It's
well, not
really
even.
5th grade under.
K to 5, people are going to be in it.
Sometimes they'll do talent shows. Like I know that on March 8th. Okay. So maybe something like that. We'll figure out when those are. And I was saying even the basketball, like on a Saturday, if they do it just one Saturday and all the teams go on one Saturday, I'll have, even if it's just something there that people can grab. Because those are all the younger kids too, right?
We've mentioned before giving the PTO flyer, and they usually get that to all the kids in all the schools.
Right.
So like we have a Thunderbirds night coming up, and Sheila over at Mountain View just put that on Blooms with the flyer attached. So that could be
another way to do it.
Yeah, they do it all electronically, which is good in that it's there. And then they'll add it to their PTO, like Facebook pages and stuff like that.
I guess we also kind of want to establish another school building committee.
March, we can do.
Do we want to set a date for the discussion about the 149 versus 149A?
That would probably be
That could be the late March.
Late March or the March school building committee. Does that work?
Late March?
March.
Okay.
Earlier, right?
Early, I would think.
Yeah.
Said early March would be a great time to make the decision. So
was second
March.
Yeah.
Second
Was March 2nd busy?
Second would be 1 month from now.
With us, yeah.
Second works for me. Our second work for everybody else for a school building committee meeting?
Not for me, but if everybody else can, go ahead. I can maybe catch it on Zoom. I'm going to be in Worcester at 1:00, so
Lovely.
tight.
If Worcester is lovely in March.
Yeah. Always.
Especially at 1 o'clock.
It's time to be there.
The East Long Meadow T-Birds Night is March 4th, so I don't know if anyone wants to do anything with that, but it's all the schools.
Going, T-Birds,
Well,
March 4th.
March 4th.
But did we settle on the second or on discussion?
Good.
Everybody else was second, okay. Okay. Yep. So the second will be our building committee meeting. Followed by our field trip to the T-Birds on the 4th.
That's not public, we're supposed to say.
Other dates just to keep in mind, March 29th, Facilities Assessment Subcommittee meeting. People who are on that. Is that right?
That's an MSBA event. So that's actually a really important event to the MSBA subcommittee, the project
Okay, so
overview.
I'm incorrect on that.
So yeah, so that's
Thank you.
actually often a really great time to have, your presence and have,
It's always great to have my
representation of the town to
Yeah.
let the MSBA know that this is solidly.
Do we get to go in
supported.
person?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I haven't heard.
They've been doing
it's on Zoom.
on Zoom for a while, and
They
there's
have been, but they've been showing.
Tell them to open
Yeah.
up. That's the opened up
I think
stuff.
they might be. The rumor is people have been seeing them on job sites and stuff. So as of right now, it's virtual, but we'll confirm that for you.
Never know what happens in March.
So what do they call that again? Just so I can.
Facilities Assessment Subcommittee, and we present an overview of the project based on all these slides that you've seen. Just trying to condense it down and talk the.
It's usually the meeting where there's the most back and forth with the
Yeah.
MSBA. So it's
Right.
not like a board meeting where they're just there to really. Thank you. But there can be some hard questions and
What was the date of that?
29th.
March 29th.
And it's at some point during the day.
Should be.
They asked.
Yeah, like,
Yeah,
do
we
they
should
want
be.
a bunch of people? Is it very
It's
specific?
usually more of the smaller
Set
group.
in stone.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a hard date.
I can zoom from somewhere else, I guess.
It's usually the superintendent,
I'm not in,
Yeah,
not in Worcester, but I'm
right?
not
Town,
Chair of the.
Long Meadow either.
chair of the building committee.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Typically see, 3 to 4 representatives from
Sometimes.
that.
It's usually mid-morning, I think.
It's usually
9:30,
11,
10
it's usually like
o'clock.
11, I
Is it
think,
11?
but I'll confirm that for you.
I retract my statement. Person, I'm gonna have to zoom that one, so that's good. that
Like
there's
Red
Zoom.
Building.
Walk that one right back.
Yeah.
And we'll have the same process during schematic design as well. We'll have a FAS meeting during that phase too. So just
Who from the MSBA attends that one?
so it's their subcommittee to the board, but it's usually from MSBA. I'm not sure exactly.
John Jump.
No, it's usually John actually is usually involved. Mary's usually involved. Mary Piketty,
Terry Architectural,
Terry Kwan, and
Terry Kwan.
yeah, they usually have an architect or engineer rep type. They'll
Girls in there too.
People who get really into
Measure.
it's not always a set roster, but I can find that out.
All right.
Yeah.
Carl was on the selection committee, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the design. Yeah,
Questions must be for the architects and OP.
And for the district, like they'll, either Frank or Gordon, someone should be able to speak to the ed plan.
Okay.
There are questions about how that relates, how the design relates to things that you might be changing in the district. So they'll usually, and they often have things that they're seeing broadly happening in education that they want to hear how, you saw that in the comments, right? That there are things that are conversation. So it's understood that this is a real major moment in the history of the school district. So they'll be asking about some of those questions. The citing itself, the organization of the school, they'll ask us questions about that and propose ideas. And I think, all MSBA meetings are public. So you can also probably, if you just want to watch, participate and watch us get
Yeah, but at that time, they've
That's good.
reviewed,
Yeah.
done a pretty thorough review of the PSR, and we'll have informed questions.
Yeah.
So it is like you're kind of your only live back and forth with them.
Yeah. We actually really like the event because we get more conversation going about the design. and big ideas, you know, they see a lot of projects, so they have interesting input.
Oh, great. Mr. Page, you had a question?
I did. Thank you. Debt exclusion. I know the town council needs to take a vote on whether or not to or send it to a ballot question. What are we looking at time frame for that? Are we still planning on a November ballot question, which typically a November election is the first Tuesday in November? Is that what we're looking for? And how far in front of that are we looking for the town council to vote to send it? And do you have to wait to do any marketing, publicity or whatever until the town council votes to do that? And so what I'm looking at is the earlier we can vote and get as much information to the public as possible, the better. But I just don't know a time frame of what the committee's thinking or MSBA or any of that.
And that was somewhat discussed, but I think we need to do more research on what the MSBA requires, because in the schedule portion that was discussed earlier, I think it was October 25th, we're locking in the final budget. But we also know that in order to do the town election, we have to get the language and the ballot printed 5 weeks in advance. Right? So we have to do a little bit more research on that as to backtrack from that November vote date to when we should schedule the town council vote.
So the schematic design gets submitted to the MSBA on the 31st of August, and 2 weeks before that, the OPM needs to notify. And in that notification is a number.
Right.
Cost.
So we'll have that information. We'll have the number and everything, but MSBA, so the 25th date that Helen was talking about, that's when MSBA approves the project scope and budget. However, to her point, we need to know that number. We need to know, and we'll know the vote language as well beforehand. So when we submit to the state in August, we'll have all of it. So, and I think like Victoria was saying, we've done it in the past. We'll firm this all up, make sure on MSBA's end that there's no issues here. But we've typically had town council meetings before that meeting has happened, that MSBA meeting has happened. So we'll find out the, legitimacy of all of that for you guys, just so that you're comfortable with it. But
yeah, I'm just thinking the longer time frame that we have, the better it is to publicize, get this out there, get it to the public, answer any other questions. Very few of them are being engaged at, from what I can see. And I think once you start telling them what the proposal is going to be to them, you're going to have a lot more engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's okay.
Based on timeline that we're talking about, so when do you get pencils down schematic? End of July?
The cost estimators,
No, for you, I mean, for you to give something to the cost estimators.
it's July. It's in July. It's almost, I want to say like a good mid-July. They need to estimate. We're still working, right? But we need to give them enough to estimate. We need to allow time for the reconciliation and BE in order to get that number in good shape by mid-August. Again, 2 weeks before the 31st. So the 31st is a hard date.
Yeah, and we may want a little window there so that you're seeing those numbers and have time to debate them and discuss them. And then we revise them further before that vote again. So a little bit more pad in there. It'd be great if we're doing a public meeting in March, and that's sort of the end of the process. We might want to aim to have another meeting, perhaps with town council involved in before the end of the school year, maybe, to really keep the information out in front of the public so that you all are getting as much input as you can to guide the process. Because you probably won't get any engagement over the summer, or not as much as you'd like. And then you'll come back and it'll be moving very quickly. So just something to think about, because it has helped to have these, even if it seems like nobody's watching, people are watching, and just keeping doing it and having that record of having been open to showing people the project, because this is a pretty tight window between when you vote and when it's submitted as SD. So probably have to do what we can ahead of that, I think, to keep advertising.
Any other new business?
The 26th.
Really, that's just it's on the calendar. We'll begin working on SD before their approval, so we don't really stop.
All right.
Any new business design side?
Set. You.
Is there a motion on the floor to adjourn?
Second.
Discussion? Adam, do you want to stay?
Quick roll call vote. Mr. Crucial?
Yes.
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 Claire? Mr. Page? Brown?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Petty? Yes. Ms. LeVar?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Me?
Yes.
And Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
All right.
Look at that. Look.
5:23, dang. Wow.